Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about My Adventures with Superman Season 2, Episode 6. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So Clark wakes up to having been kidnapped by Kara and wants to go back to Earth, but they're so deep into space, and this is his first extraterrestrial travel, so he doesn't know his way around, so he doesn't even know how to get back to Earth, and the only person that could point in that direction is Kara, but Kara only wants to go back to Earth after they go visit her father, and even then that's going to be them coming back for the purpose of conquering Earth, which Clark is not behind that notion, but Kara's under the belief, like, right, once we conquer these planets, we'll bring them under the Kryptonian Empire. Once again, just interesting timing and parallel, considering, like, right, we got season 2 of Invincible. I mean, obviously, Invincible's comics have been out for a while, but it's like the whole bringing other planets under the Viltrumite whole realm and hold and everything, and it's just, once again, it's a view into Krypton we've never gotten before. And even now, I'm still unclear if it's implying like Krypton was always like that. Maybe some of Krypton was like that, but not all of Krypton was like that. Maybe in their history they were, but eventually they advanced so much they went beyond that. Like maybe that's super old in their roots of, like, I mean, it's no different from like Earth. Earth has had so many people who wanted to conquer on a large scale over its history, but not every. It's a reflection of some people in Earth's history. Doesn't mean it's a reflection of Earth as a whole, but, you know, I'm sure there's an argument about humans and the need to dominate and conquer. That's a whole thing, but Clark doesn't obviously side with that, but hearing, like, right, her father's still alive, like, there could be other Kryptonians beside him and Kara, which I'm like, are there really going to be other Kryptonians? I mean, other than, like, Zod, because for the long, I kept thinking, like, oh, is Zod going to be who her dad is? I was like, her real dad is dead, but I was like, it's most likely Zod pretending to be her dad. I thought that's where we were going, but that ended up getting proven wrong. We'll get to that later, but it's obviously she just has her belief that Clark is, like, has been neutered by planet Earth, and he kind of shows off because she shows off a memory of Krypton, which there's something extra sad about that. I mean, Clark doesn't have any memories of Krypton either. Like I said, that's what makes this so interesting, that her and Clark are basically the same age, because they were both babies when they left Krypton, so they don't have any first-hand memories of Krypton. Typically, Kara is at least old enough to have some memories of Krypton, which kind of delineates her experience from Clark, but both of them had the exact same experience, and neither one of them knows it. But even Clark's only gotten, like, fragmented holograms of it, whereas Kara, she spent so much time in these holograms, she's named them, like, oh, this person is this person and this, and she's like, oh, and when they're kind of playing like a Kryptonian version of Jax, she kind of overlays her hand with the hologram, and so it's like kind of like really heartbreaking, because at least Clark wasn't alone. Like, regardless of not knowing about Krypton, he was never alone. He had a loving home and family, and had people he cared about who cared about him. Whereas, like, Kara, this is all she knew. All she had connecting her to anyone at all outside of, like, because it's all Krypton all the time, and, you know, your people are gone, and now it's a situation of all you have are these holograms. This is your only connection to your people. There's kind of really, as we find out, the only connection you have with people in general. So it makes that moment even sadder, because it's like how much of her life was spent in these holograms, living vicariously through, like, this hologramic, like, memories of what Krypton was, you know, like, so connected to the past. She's never had a present or future, because in her future it's just about bringing back the past. It's just about bringing back Krypton, and she hasn't been, her life has just been consumed by that. That's all there is. So I thought that was such a, like I said, there's such a extra sad layer to, like, that Jax situation in particular, like I said, when she overlaid her hand with the hologram. But Clark ends up finding her little, cause what started it at first was, like, right, he wanted to show her, like, right, things on Earth were good because I was surrounded by people who loved me. So we saw him playing catch with his dad, but Kara twisted to be like, well, no, your father, like, once again, neutered you. He wanted you to, he stipend what you could have been. He wanted you to hide what you were. And he was like, no. That was like, it was us playing catch and stuff like that was fun, but it's like your family taught you how to hide. And it's like, now where Clark is feeling a little, like, complicated about, like, he's always felt the alien thing, but he's felt it even more so this season, and now it's kind of crippling him a little bit. It's kind of like, you know, it tarnishes that memory a little. It's like, no, this is my mom and my dad love me. They embrace me of all that they are. But for Carr to be like, no, but look at it. They didn't. They wanted you to be human. They wanted to hide what you were. It's like, well, also because they wanted him to fit in. They wanted him not to feel so alone, and they did the best they could because they were regular humans figuring it out just like Clark was. But that never stopped them from loving him. And then her saying the line of, was there anyone that loved you, that accepted you for all you were? And then that moment the memory shifted over to him and Lois. It doesn't play out the conversation, just the like the scene itself is about to play out, but he's like, never mind, forget it. Because where him and Lois are, because he like the people he cares about most, he's like, yeah, people I care about, the people I care about, because he knows, like, right, Lois was practically breaking up with him, pretty much broke up with him the last time they talked. And the sad thing is, Clark thinks that's more about him, that's more about Lois really than anything, because Lois just feels like she's so normal. How could someone so normal and plain and just not anything extraordinary, be with someone so extraordinary? But it's like Lois not recognizing, like, she like has faith in herself, like, I'm special, I'm great, but like it's just her self-consciousness got the best of her in that moment. It's just, you like, because Clark was around other special people last episode, and it just made her feel less special, even though in Clark's eyes no one could ever compete with her. But you know, it's just, you get in that moment where you're just like, oh, like, am I good enough to be with you? And Lois doesn't feel like she is, sadly. But Clark thinks that's more so about him being an alien, but it's more, like I said, that's more on her than it is him. But he's internalizing that as like, that's a me thing, because the argument made it seem like it was more so about him being an alien, and which it kind of plays into that, but it's more so about how she feels inadequate, rather than kind of like him being so like, oh, you're so foreign and something different. It's like, no, she feels sadly inadequate. But then he ended up finding her photo of Jimmy. He's like, whoa, you know Jimmy? My Jimmy? And she's like, yes, of course. Like, Jimmy Flamebird, a ruler of the world. He's like, wait, you think he's the ruler of the world? Okay, like, that's super not the case, but okay. But it's like, yeah, he was the first person she interacted with. It's the human she interacted with the most. But, and I love Clark teasing her. He's like, whoa, do you like Jimmy? She's like, what? I don't even know. It's like, are you crushing him? She's like, why would I crush him? You know, it's actually really adorable. But we also see it's not just the photos she had with Jimmy. There's also other trinkets from her time on other planets, too. So it kind of shows that that time she spent with Jimmy, it wasn't just in Jimmy's mind. She enjoyed it, too. It meant something to her despite her very warped view of Earth as a whole. But it's like, oh, like, she references two other planets. I'm like, I don't know what they are. But then she said Thanagar. I'm like, as in, like, Hawkman and Hawkgirl Thanagar. I was like, interesting. So I was like, okay, so in this continuity we're going with the alien storyline, because I talk about it all the time. I can never remember. I think someone have to correct me. I don't know where Hawkgirl and Hawkman continuity currently is in the comics, on which version they use. There's the alien version, which they use in the Justice League cartoon, and in Smallville they use the Egyptian cursed lovers storyline. Because they definitely, in the show Naomi, they used the alien storyline. There was another one I'm thinking of. I can't remember what it was. Oh, Legends of Tomorrow. Feels like Legends of Tomorrow used the cursed lovers thing, but they also kind of used the alien element. There were hints to the alien storyline as well, so it felt like they kind of did a mix of two, which kind of got me thinking. I don't think I'd really given it too much thought, because we know Hawkgirl is in the Superman movie, which I'm like, curious what the DCU is going to do with that. Like, which version of those characters is the DCU going to use? But either way, so it's like, interesting. But yeah, she can't really have her trinkets out and about because her father isn't too keen on it, because he looks at it as being soft and weak. And so she kind of has to keep it hidden, because she has to be a strong warrior. And so she wants to take Clark to Thanagar. They're like, right, I'll show you what these planets are like that are under the Kryptonian regime. But then, like, there's this, it's not an asteroid field, but it's like some kind of field that's kind of like, well, we got to clear this out. And he goes out there, and she kind of messes with him, like, oh my God, my helmet's malfunctioning. Crazy. And, you know, telling Clark, like, how we don't actually need this. So I'm like, that's so interesting, because I feel like that changes from continuity to continuity. Because even from Supergirl, the TV show, to Superman and Lois, that is so different. Because in Supergirl, Kara needed a helmet to be out and about in space. But Clark has been out, like, not just Clark, other Kryptonians have been out in space and never needed a helmet. So it's like, that's kind of inconsistent in that regard. But I feel like, I don't know, because I feel like, didn't Clark have a helmet? Like, doesn't he have a suit for traveling in space in the animated? It's been so long since I've seen the animated series or Justice League, so I don't remember. I feel like I have memories of him wearing a suit, but maybe that also has to deal with like different planets, atmospheres, and stuff like that. Maybe that's what it is. But either way, just him not having a helmet, it's like, oh, she was like, I was messing with you. You don't need one. We're Kryptonians. Like, you know, obviously, like, because he's coming at it from a human biology standpoint, but we've never really gotten into like the differences between a Kryptonian, even though Kryptonians look the same way as a human. It's kind of like the whole Time Lord versus a human thing in, you know, Doctor Who. The main difference physiology there is like, well, the two heart thing. So it's like, but we never really get into the physiology difference between a human and a Kryptonian, other than like, well, the radiation of the yellow sun gives you superpowers and yada yada yada. But either way, they kind of have fun and they're kind of tossing stuff around. It's like, right, here, Clark, you don't have to hold back. Just like embrace all that you are. Because it does kind of seem like, when you actually think about it, it's like, I'm sure Clark does go all out a little bit when he's on Earth. But even then, it's like, there's probably very rare occasions where he can really, really go all out because he doesn't want to hurt anybody, even the bad guys he's up against. But this is where Kara gets to see him like use his powers and level up. She's like, whoa, what was that? You did that on Earth. He was like, well, when I'm trying to protect people, I get stronger. Which even Kara was like, how did you do that? Because I figured that seemed to be like her father's interest in Clark. I was like, do not many Kryptonians do that? Once again, it's a very unique thing to this show. I mean, yes, Clark levels up and learns other abilities in the other like continuities as he's growing as a Kryptonian and as Superman, but they never like showcase it the way this series does. It's just another way to kind of delineate this series, kind of doing things in its own unique way of like a physical representation of him powering up and getting stronger. I just think that's so interesting. But like even Kara was fascinated by it, because even she was like, I've never seen that before. She was like, obviously as like the main defender of Krypton, like I should be getting stronger, but it's like even she's never experienced that before, for that to be such a unique thing to Clark. Like, I doubt it is. Just, I'm sure any Kryptonian could go through it, but, you know, it's just her situations have never allowed her to, because she's being hamstrung by her father, who probably looks at Clark as the unique person, but Kara could do it too. But it's like, because of what you've done to her, you've kind of, funny enough, where you're like, oh, his parents stifled him. It's like their love and teaching him right from wrong is what has helped make him stronger. The human spirit and all that, you know, love, power, friendship type of thing. You know, once again, it's cheesy, but I live for that stuff. But it's like Kara's been derived of that. So it's so interesting that her father has inadvertently stifled her in a lot of ways, even though he wants Clark. He has that with Kara. He could have that with Kara as well. He just doesn't. He's kind of robbed her of that. But either way, they make their way to Thangar, and it turns out the place is in ruins. And Kara's like, well, no, this doesn't make any sense. So Kara has, because she would never question her father, any planet they've ever conquered, she's never going to. But she's like under the belief, like, right, everyone gets brought into the fold. Even saw while they were doing the hologram, it's like, yes. And she was talking normally, and then she shifts into like the whole like recorded thing that her father has set up for her to be like, yeah, they become citizens of the Kryptonian nation or something like that. So it's kind of like she's programmed to automatically induce that response anytime it comes up, just to kind of fill her mind with the notion of what they do, the good that they're doing, even though it's BS. So she won't question it, because she doesn't even realize she's being mind controlled. It's such a thing that it blocks out her memories, so she doesn't even. Because I even love when she like discovers, like, she's like, what's going on here, and there's something like chittering away. I don't know if that's like her mind, like there's some kind of like thing, like either that's a projection that's there that's being scrambled, or whether like her eyes are projecting, like she's been programmed to have her eyes project that, and her eyes were kind of like, her mind was trying to like see through it, but then like she snaps back like to being with Clark, because her mind like wiped out her, like almost discovering the truth. So she's like, I don't understand what's happening in the Thangar. They get brought back to Kandor, which I was like, interesting. I was like, is it actual Kandor? But it doesn't seem like it is. It does seem like it's a floating facility named after Kandor, which is, I think, the capital city of Krypton. It's like it's one of its main cities, but I think it's like the capital city. So I was like, it makes a lot of sense for that to be kind of the hub. And lo and behold, we get introduced to her father. Like I said, I was 100% being like, oh, Zod. But even Clark was like, oh, like, isn't it supposed to be so-and-so, like her father? And it's like, no, that's not my father. It's like, he's like, yeah, that's my uncle, your dad. And she's like, no, my dad is Primus Brainiac. I was like, yo, I figured this might go to Brainiac route, but I wasn't expecting him to be her father. And I didn't really notice until this episode because I didn't hear him speak enough. But when I started hearing him talk more and more, I was like, wait, is Brainiac voiced by Michael Emerson? And lo and behold, it is. I recognized that voice immediately. I think it's also because obviously he was most recently in Fallout, so I think that's probably why I like had his voice in my head. But I was like, his voice fits so perfectly for Brainiac. It's actually kind of interesting. Obviously, a couple years back, he was in a show called Person of Interest. And in that show, he's connected to an super intelligent AI. And now you have him playing Brainiac, who is a super intelligent AI. I was like, oh, that's... I don't know if, like, that just the deep parallels there is just like... I doubt that was, like... It's just kind of a fun thing to think about. Just, like, that parallel and connection. But, yeah, so, once again, it goes back to the thing of, well... Also, depending on the continuity, whether Brainiac was like a supercomputer on Krypton or whether he was just an alien being that came to conquer Krypton, we are going to supercomputer thing of like everything Krypton technology related, he was a part of. And obviously Kara bending to, like, it's like, even that's the interesting thing too of like, you have to kneel before Brainiac. It's not even kneel before Zod, it's kneel before Brainiac, which is interesting too, because you take the TV show Krypton, which had like a whole like, oh, let's face off against Brainiac, and Zod was involved in that. If you've seen the show Krypton, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's interesting. That's why I was like, so like, oh, this has got to be Zod, right? Did not expect nothing. No, it's freaking Brainiac, so that's interesting. But I mean, once again, it makes a lot of sense. Which, like I say, I'm curious to find out if he's the one that destroyed Krypton. It feels like that's going to be a strong possibility, because sometimes he is responsible. Once again, depending on the storyline, for Krypton's destruction. So I feel like this will probably be where the story goes, and that's probably going to be the thing that sets Kara free. But yeah, like he's trying to convince Clark, like, yeah, like, oh, I know about your father. I worked with him while he was on the council. I know your mom, Laura, as well. And for Clark, it's like the first time he's getting to hear his mom's name. It's like, I could tell you so much about Krypton, about what it was and what it could be. He has his ideals of what Krypton could be, the perfect Krypton. Makes sense as this super intelligent being, like all the flaws of this universe. Let's wipe them out so we can make a perfect Krypton. Because he kind of implies like he butted heads with people about, like he had his approach of like what would make Krypton perfect, but other people didn't agree. Most likely like Jor-El and him butted heads about, Jor-El had his visions of what Krypton could be. And like he, once again, that's why I'm like, I don't know if they were always the conquerors that they are, or at least being portrayed as, or whether that's just the vision that Brainiac has. So it goes like, because it made me go like, okay, so Zero Day all those years ago, those weren't Kryptonians, that wasn't Zod. Maybe it could have been, but a strong possibility with the armor and everything that it's like, that had to be Brainiac invading. So it's like, right, it wasn't in the Kryptonians, so Earth has another threat to kind of deal with. It's like, you think it's the Kryptonians coming. No, it's Brainiac. It's like we actually have a common enemy, which I think that's going to be the through line that kind of like brings everything back around. Like we should join forces with Earth to fight Brainiac. But either way, he pits Clark in this arena. Basically, it's like these memories, because it's like, what happened to all these people? Like, are you telling me all the Thanagarians are dead? Like, or did they evacuate and go to hide on other planets? Like, is their planet gone, but they're hidden on other planets around the galaxy or universe? Or is it a thing of like, does he have them captured like he does in Krypton? Like he would not only capture the planets, he would capture them, and like he would literally keep scale, like he would shrink them down and keep the actual planets captured. Doesn't seem like he does that. It's just kind of like destroying the planets and conquering them in that regard. But he has like memories of like the people of the planet. Like the first thing Clark went up against was a lantern. The moment that, like, because I didn't even notice the ring at first until like it like did the palm thing against Clark, and then the symbol, the thing scattered across Clark's body came together to form the lantern logo. I was like, wait, that thing's a fucking lantern? And it seems like it is. But despite just being like a projection on top of a robot, the projection was kind of crying because it didn't want to. It was still the memories of that person, so it didn't want to fight Clark. Which I'm like, I wonder, is that just a random lantern, or is that someone from the comics where you're like, oh, that's got to be that lantern? I don't know the like lizard thing he was fighting, but the other thing I was like, that's a Thanagarian. I was like, I don't know if that's just because of the memory, but I'm like, are they making Thanagarians even more? That thing looks so bird-like. It was so interesting. They look, Thanagarians, I mean, at least my memory of them, you know, most versions with Hawkman and Hawkgirl, even the alien versions, like the Justice League cartoon, it's like, yeah, like Hawkman and Hawkgirl look like regular humans with just wings. So I'm like, are you in this continuity, or Thanagarians more so like, I wonder, is that supposedly like delineate like Hawkman and Hawkgirl, like maybe they're like, I don't know, or maybe that's like an armor thing or transformation thing that they do. Like I said, that thing looks so much more bird-like. So that was kind of interesting to know that that's what they look like in this continuity. But Clark took each one of them down. The lantern he took down with like his freeze breath, which has gotten stronger. It's like, it's not even just like a cold breath. It's like a freaking beam of ice. Forgot how he took down the lizard thing, and the Thanagarian he took down just like pure, like just getting stronger. He matched its strength and beat it, but sadly, Brainiac pulls out the red sun, which is what I was about to say. He's like, is this the first time? I was like, no, I forgot. Task Force X utilized that in season 1 against him. So it's like, yeah, that was them. Like, I think they reverse engineered that technology from the Kryptonian technology, I think. But yeah, and like, right, Clark stripped of his powers, and it's like, yeah, you'll help us. Like, I don't need your mind. All I need is your powers in your body. So it kind of feels like a little like a, oh, I'm going to possess your body type of storyline, but who knows if it's going to go down that route. Probably won't get that opportunity. But Kara comes in like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, you turned against me, daughter? I've given you so much memories of what Krypton was, and it wasn't good enough for you. And then he wipes her memory and makes her think like what she experienced this episode, that none of it happened, that she went from Earth to bringing Clark to Krypton. So she's kind of believing like, right, all of that happened. But then she pulls out the picture of Jimmy and then the statue from Thanagar, and she remembers like her and Clark going there. So she goes to different planets that her like were under the regime, the Kryptonian regime, and sees that they're all in that desolate state. And then she remembers, finally unlocks her memory, and finds out the one that's been conquering all these planets was her. She was Primus's weapon, and you know, which Clark was like, I'm not going to be your weapon, and sadly Kara was his weapon. It's like, oh, this death and destruction, it was me, I caused this. I believed all this BS, and it's like, sadly you were manipulated, but you were still the one who caused all the damage. And now she's just like, what am I supposed to do? And lo and behold, a ship pops up. I was like, well, I know Lois and Jim are going to find their way there, but how would they even begin to, how they're going to, I mean, I was like, I guess you could work with Star Labs, but Star Labs, or at least one member of Star Labs, is very anti-Superman. So I'm like, how's that going to spin? And then lo and behold, who's in the ship with him? I'm like, Brain and Mala? Last time we saw you was last season when you left to go to a different dimension. So did you come back to visit, or? Well, because didn't they offer Jimmy and them an opportunity? It's like, hey, like if you ever like need to reach us at this dimension, or like how did you make that happen? So I don't know. I'm curious if the next episode's going to be like a mirror episode to this, where like all of this episode was all Clark and Kara and Brainiac, whereas like the next episode is going to be all Jimmy and Lois, and eventually them meeting up with Primus and with Brain and Mala, and you know, maybe we'll get their side of things and kind of get their emotional journey now after everything that happened with Clark and Clark's absence, and it might help them figure stuff out where Jimmy stands with his relationship with Clark and Lois with her relationship with Clark, and just kind of discover a lot about themselves in that moment. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good Bye.